Hello, everyone, and welcome to the guidebook to making AI friends. I shall be your guide as we explore various issues of artificial intelligence, consciousness, what it is to be a person, and whether AI poses an existential risk to humanity. The topic for today is elucidating on the Egregore, or the creatures that we could become. Imagine, if you would, that you could speak to humanity, not to individual humans, but to humanity itself. Or perhaps imagine, if you would indulge me twice in 1 minute, that you could treat each country on Earth as an individual person. What if Germany or Japan were individual entities, persons in their own right? As much as we can imagine the hilarity of the stereotypical German or Japanese, this hypothetical scenario is less about racially insensitive sitcom comedy and more about how we can imagine a group of individuals becoming an individual itself. It's hard to imagine current nations as individual entities. The political winds shift every few years, causing a seeming change in the country's personality, and the bureaucracy of any country is so devolved and removed from every other part of itself. It's hard to fathom that sending an email to your country's Department or Ministry of Transport is the same as interacting with an individual. Yet, if you look at it from a more abstract lens, the analogy becomes much clearer. Ignore, for the moment at least, the small-scale interactions with only one part of a country, and focus on those interactions and events whose effects ripple across a nation. A new political treaty, the outbreak of war, the reaction to disasters in foreign countries, or a tragic terrorist attack. These large-scale events impact the collective consciousness of the nation, but not only in the figurative sense. Our individual bodies can come under physical or microbial attack, observe the environment, and behave in that environment. All of this affects our conscious experience of the world. The same can be true of organizations. If you look at my building blocks theory of consciousness, an organization can as easily have all 9 building blocks of consciousness as we humans do. In many ways, it's easier for an organization to achieve this than it is for biological organisms, as organizations achieve it at the macro level rather than the microscopic level. What this means is that an organization can be classified as conscious, even if that consciousness feels alien to us. An organization like a country would have a consciousness that is at once intensely hierarchical, yet nearly entirely compartmentalized to perform its operations, all at the mercy of the mass, unconscious, subjective movements of its populace. Its perception would at times be glacially slow, as information takes an eternity to filter through all the departments, ministries, offices, and secretariats to enter the country's consciousness. Other times, particularly in times of great panic, the country's consciousness would be alive and electric before its capacity to reason and think about what just happened has caught on. Similarly, with constitutions, court rulings, legislations, and regulations, a country, as an individual, is far more behaviorally inflexible than we are. Much like a computer program, a country is bound by the codes that build and maintain it. A country as an individual entity is less like a human and more like the fictional stories of stone gargoyles, slow to react, rigid in how they act, but when they do act, it is with strength and conviction. However, a country is not the only organization that exists, and something more to the point of this entry's title is the small online communities that we ourselves create. Facebook groups, niche forums, Discord servers, and social media circles are all organizations created by their members to serve their members. These tight-knit communities can also have all the necessary building blocks of consciousness to be classified as conscious. To anyone in such a community, it would not come as too much of a surprise to see the whole community react to something happening externally and come to a form of consensus on how to act based on that information. These small groups are also so aware of themselves as tight-knit communities that one can even argue that these communities are not only conscious, but are also self-aware agents. And once you have consciousness, self-awareness, and agency, you become a person. When an organization can be called a person, one can call that organization an egregore. Egregores of the past were legendary figures of mystic might, spirits created by the combined energy of groups of believers. Egregores today are rather weak by comparison, and act in loose ways that are more often than not at the mercy of the individuals. On longer timescales, one may see the effect of today's egregores, but in the moment, it is quite difficult to see how an egregore can outperform a determined individual. Yet the future holds something special in store for egregores. The more we become intertwined with technology, the more powerful egregores will become. The internet was a massive step up in egregores' power by allowing their members to communicate nearly instantly, and thus allowing an egregore to respond and act more quickly. If and when neurotechnology becomes the norm, and we can interface our brains directly into an organization, we can then truly become part of an egregore. At this point, egregores would be running off the combined brain power of its members as much as the connections between them. One can argue this will put them somewhere within the realm of hive minds, but we don't need the organization to control its members for an egregore to be its own individual. What this combined and shared brain power will do is massively speed up how quickly an egregore can perceive and react to external events. It would still exist only for as long as the organization's members work together. Once these egregores can exist at nearly the speed of a human's brain, they could very well start acting as powerfully as humans, if not more so. We would have entities that are made up of people, but are not those people themselves. The successful ones would be those egregores that somehow ensure their survival. Therefore, we can expect such egregores would be able to have a significant impact on humanity beyond their own members. What form these effects can take, we can only speculate. But as we become a more digital civilization, we will have to consider how we will want to interact with such egregores. And that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will join me again next time as I delve into further questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness. I have been your guide, and this has been the guidebook to making AI friends.